I can't help but start this off with a passage from Matthew 24. It's actually, here's what he says: You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things will happen, but the end is still to come. Nations will rise against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginnings of the birth pangs. Wars and rumors of wars fits in so exactly to what's going on right now. So, this is DaviD TaL. This is a Balagan connection, and we're going to be talking about, well, the Iranian reaction, the Iranian revenge, the Iranian attack to what happened in Tehran last week, the Hezbollah reaction to what happened in Beirut last week, what's going on with Hamas a little bit, and connecting all of this together. I was saying it. President Trump was saying it. The Biden administration was saying it. Even my mom, who was, sitting in the bomb shelter in Modin, with extra water and the iron windows were closed, was saying that it's going to happen. It's going to happen right now. And we were all waiting for an imminent Iranian attack, at least as strong as the attack a couple of months ago when they fired 350 drones and rockets and ballistic missiles. And as of today, and at the time of this recording, they have not attacked. And that is raising huge question marks about why and how this changes the whole dynamic of what's going on. Let's talk about the dates before we get into all the rest of the geopolitics and the military and everything that goes according to that. Because anybody who knows anything about Jewish tradition, about Jewish holidays, about the Jewish calendar knows that we are coming up very, very close to the Hebrew date of the destruction of the temple. Tisha B'Av is the Hebrew calendar date of the destruction of both of the temples and a lot of bad things that happened to the Jews along the way. I mean, there's a whole list of events that happened on the 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av, according to the Jewish calendar. The Solomonic temple was destroyed. The Herodian temple was destroyed, and we were banished, from our places. There is decrees by the King of England. There's banishments by the King and Queen of Spain. This is a bad day for Jews, and it's really not by coincidence that this Monday evening and Tuesday is going to be Tisha B'Av according to the Jewish calendar. And maybe one of the reasons that Iran has put off this attack is they're waiting for the dates that they know as well as we do. And I think I heard somebody mention it in the Iranian press. They're waiting for the dates, or the most impactful dates for the Jewish people. So that's going to be Monday evening and Tuesday. And we will be talking after that to see how that kind of impacts. So let's put it this way, though. If they don't attack on Monday, Tuesday, then something else is completely coming up. And there's a lot of people are kind of wondering maybe something has happened inside the Iranian regime, that it's all about the bark and not about the bite. And let's see if I can connect it to where we're going. There are quite a few people who are talking about different reasons why the Iranians are not pulling off this attack. By the way, let's put it together. When I say the Iranians, I mean Hezbollah also. The second in command of the Hezbollah was taken off in Beirut last week within 6 hours of the head of the political bureau of the Hamas, who was taken out in Tehran. By the way, very, very interesting to go into the details about how that happened. Literally, a small bomb was actually put inside his bed in the hotel room, or the room inside the resort where they knew he was going to stay, and it was put there 2 months beforehand. And they just waited for him to come, fall asleep, and connect to a very, very amazing dream. Another very interesting aspect of that is that his bodyguard was killed in the same room with him, which is kind of weird, because if the explosive device was so small and so direct, how did it kill both of them in the same room? I mean, It was really, really small. But okay, but we believe that one of the reasons that Iran is holding back, and we're not sure if Hezbollah is holding back because of Iran or because of something else, one of the reasons is that they underestimated Israel's reaction. Hamas underestimated Israel's reaction at the 7th of October. And Israel has totally in the war against Hamas, has gone in and deeply into the roots of Gaza in order to pull them out. But you see pictures of Gaza, and I can't help but think that maybe those pictures are in the heads of the Iranians and the Lebanese or the Hezbollah, who has to make the decision if they're going to pull off this reprisal attack against Israel. So they're thinking twice. Add on to the fact that when the Houthis did manage to kill somebody in Israel, Israel went down to Yemen and took out their port in Hadaydah, I think it was called, and hit a vital infrastructure. And I think that both the Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Iranians in Iran realize that if Israel pulls out the stops, it could be a devastating attack for their economy and for their people. Add on that in Lebanon, the reason for us to take out the second in command of Hezbollah was an attack on a Druze village on the Golan Heights where 12 children were murdered, literally murdered. The Druze are a minority in Lebanon, and I think I spoke about that last time, and that minority is threatening to pull the thread of the whole unity in southern Lebanon that Hezbollah is actually planning on or embedded in. And if that happens, Lebanon will fall apart. And I think there's a little bit of worry about that. So there is a bit of deterrence that has returned to Israel. And I think our enemies are afraid of really making us mad and what we might do as a result. The second reason that I kind of want to connect to is that maybe what we're talking about is the fact that the proxies were not ready. I mean, for an all-out attack like this, you have to put the fuel in the rockets and the rockets on the launchers and the launchers in the place. I mean, there's a lot of this. And we kind of believe that maybe they weren't ready for this together attack that they're trying to pull off. There was a lot of talk about the Hezbollah pulling off attack before the Iranians did, without the Iranians. And don't get me wrong, the Hezbollah has more than 150,000 rockets, some of them highly accurate that could do devastating damage to Israel. If something like that did happen, Israel would retaliate with huge amounts of firepower, and that might actually be the spark that pulls all of the Middle East into this Middle East war. So they weren't really ready, or they aren't really ready to put it together, and that might be one of the reasons that we're talking about. But I think one of the more important ones is this. In the background of all of this, behind everybody's eye, is the Iranian nuclear program. Now, I don't know if you understand, those of you who remember the Cold War between the Soviet Union and Israel, remember that nobody actually used a nuclear bomb. Nobody actually used a nuclear weapon. But the nuclear weapons in the background, and if you remember the Cuban crisis in 1962, and the only reason I remember that date is because it was the year I was born, but the Cuban crisis actually brought the world to the brink of a nuclear war, and it gave the Soviet Union had more power than they would have on a regular military stage because of the nuclear threat that had in the background. Now think of everything that we're going through with Iran now, and they do have a working, viable nuclear capability. That changes the whole dynamic. It changes the whole dynamic because it brings the threat level up to something completely different. So I think that one of the reasons that Iran is being careful is that if they do pull off a major attack, Israel will use this as the excuse to go on and finally take out their nuclear capability. I think we do have the ability, together with the help of the United States. Now, the Biden administration does not want that to happen right now, and that's one of the reasons that they're holding us back. But if Israel actually does suffer any kind of major casualties because of this attack that the Iranians are going to bring doing. I think it might be the excuse that Israel wants or will use to take out Israel, the Iranian nuclear capability. And I think that's in the back of their minds. And I think they're even holding back the Houthis and the Hamas and the Hezbollah because they don't want to lose that ability. Last but not, well, maybe not last, but another reason is the whole global politics of what's going on. The Biden administration has pulled out all stops to convince Israel to hold on, to convince anybody who has any kind of influence on the Iranians to hold back. The last thing that they want is one massive blow up in the Middle East. They don't know how to deal with it. It'll hurt the Democratic part of the equation more than it will hurt the Republican part. And again, everything they're putting pressure on the Iranians. They're putting in any way possible in order to kind of hold this down. They even put pressure on Russia to put pressure on Iran to be careful not to hit civilian populations in Israel because that'll bring a much, much bigger retaliation. And so everybody's trying to hold this whole event down to something minimalized. And we can hear that the Saudis and the Jordanians, all of them are maneuvering to kind of say, okay, if you want to pull off some kind of retaliation, we're here to make sure that doesn't happen. The USA has moved I think it was the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier closer to the whole Middle Eastern center. There's too much more destroyers with anti-missile capabilities that have been moved in closer. I think there's another squadron of F-22s is America's stealth fighter that has been moved into the Middle East, but it's really interesting. Everybody's talking about it moving in. Nobody's saying where they're moving into. I think even the British are saying they're putting their forces on alert. The Canadians have told their people to move out of Beirut. The British have ships ready to move their people out of Beirut. So it's all on the edge, and everybody is actually lined up to make sure that this is not going to be a major event. Everybody is trying to kind of contain it so it won't go off the rails. Let me make something very clear, though. The American administration, the Biden administration, I don't know where he is. I mean, the Kamala Harris administration, for lack of a better word, I don't have a better label to put on it, is not showing support for Israel for love of Israel. They don't want this war for their internal reasons. And just to prove that they don't really support Israel, Kamala Harris has actually been noted to be negotiating with representatives of the Muslim Arabs, mostly in Dearborn, Michigan, who actually came to her in one of the rallies, who asked her to impose an arms embargo on Israel in return for the support of the Muslim population of the Harris campaign during these coming up elections. Meaning, throwing Israel under the bus is going to be seen as a positive element for the Democratic Party. And that scares me more than anything, though I'm not surprised. Israel under the bus, abortion, gender Balagan, all of that comes together on one specific side of the political fence. And I hope it's clear to the people watching here what that means and what we should be doing in November. Iran wants the war of attrition to continue. There's a war of attrition between Iran through its proxies and the Hezbollah and the Hamas, through the Hezbollah and the Houthim. They want that war of attrition to continue as far as they can. Israel has accepted, not because we really want it, but accepted the fact that there's a war of attrition going on, and everybody is afraid that the fire is going to be turned on. And your administration is allowing them, saying, okay, just fire a couple rockets a day. Just kill one or two Israelis whenever you can. Just fire a couple of drones a day, and we will accept that as long as you promise not to start off an all-out war. And I can't help put it together. I mean, American soldiers were killed in an American base, were wounded in an American base in Iraq. I mean, missiles are being fought at American assets. And why is it acceptable that for the United States and the people around the world that somebody fires rockets at us and they only fire 20 rockets of us. Why is it acceptable that only 2 people die a week? I mean, why is that acceptable in the case of Israel and not acceptable in the case of others? And there's something that smacks to us of the world seeing Jewish lives in a different way. Then tie back up what we started in the beginning, the Tisha B'Av, the day of the destruction of the temple, and you understand why we're very, very careful, or why we're very, very worried about what's coming up this next week. In the meantime, huge amounts of effort have been made on the hostage negotiation or the ceasefire negotiation, depending on what your side you're on. Qatar, Egypt, and the United States put out a joint announcement that they believe that the ceasefire / hostage agreement is on the edge, and everybody's hoping that the hostage agreement will stop everything before it all blows up into an all-scale war. I don't know, but again, let's go back to where we were. Wars and rumors of war have become the normal situation in the world that we live in today. And that was just one more way to tie this together. On a personal basis, me and Christy are heading out to a big Calvary Chapel pastors conference in Hawaii. And we will be speaking out there about what's going on in Israel. And I have to say, I feel very blessed to be able to have a platform like this in front of pastors to talk about what's going on in Israel and what the church needs to do for Israel. So please pray for us as we go out there, and pray for that the message will be well articulated and well received while we're out there. That's going to be a week. We're moving back and forth. We just got back from Arkansas a couple of days ago, and there's a feeling like, okay, God is actually pushing us more and more into these different venues in order to spread the word about Israel. A quick reminder: if you have a church, if you have a pastor who wants to hear about Israel from somebody who is up close and personal with everything that happens, please let me know either in the comments below or at the Balagan Connection. I mean, all of those, we kind of are trying to reach out to as many churches as possible. But a quick reminder, we still have 2 groups planned in September. And as of now, we're going back to Israel in September to do those 2 groups. But I don't know. I don't know what God has in store. So we'll have to see how that plays out and what happens. Well, pray for what's going to happen next week and then in the next couple of weeks. And again, if you want to support us directly, there's a link down below to the Gihon Springs website. The Gihon Springs website is the ministry that we're a part of that is supporting soldiers in Israel. We're buying them equipment like scopes and drones, and supporting Christian ministries in Israel, and is also supporting me and Christy are in the Balagan Connection and everything that we're doing. So if that's something that is on your heart, you can do that below here. More important than anything, please like, share, and actually subscribe if you haven't done that. Help us with the algorithm. The YouTube is not monetizing these videos in most cases because of the content, and they have a problem with that. So just getting the word out is what's more important than anything right now. So this is DaviD TaL. This is a Balagan Connection with a little bit of an update. These next couple of days are going to be critical. Hope to see you here soon.